I want to start today by putting you in a very specific and maybe slightly uncomfortable headspace. I want you to imagine you're standing in a crowded subway car during rush hour. Or maybe you're packed into a tight elevator in some high-rise. You are surrounded by people. You are physically closer to them than you are to your own family most of the time. You can, smell their coffee. You can hear that tinny sound of music leaking from their headphones. But, and this is really the key, you feel absolutely zero connection to them. You're just in your own world, scrolling your own feed, worrying about your specific job, your specific bills. You feel like an island in a sea of strangers.
It is the defining feeling of modern life, isn't it? Proximity without any real intimacy. We're all physically compressed, but we feel socially distant.
Exactly. We are obsessed with our individuality. We curate our personal brands. We define ourselves by how, unique our tastes are in music or food. We feel incredibly distinct from the person standing right next to us. And yet, and here's the paradox we're going to wrestle with today. If the power goes out, or the supply chain breaks, or just one specific server farm in Virginia overheats, your entire individual existence just collapses. We're more distinct than ever, yet we're more helpless than ever. We are hyper-individualized, but we're also hyper-dependent.
It's a striking contradiction. I mean, if you compare us to a pioneer living on the frontier 200 years ago, they were less individualistic in terms of their social rules. Everyone did roughly the same things to survive. You farmed, you built, you mended, but they were far more independent. They could actually walk away from society and live. You and I, we can't. Not really. We are tethered to thousands, maybe millions of strangers we will never meet.
To understand how that machinery works, and more importantly, why it so often feels like the gears are grinding and screeching, we have to go back to 1893. We are doing a deep dive today into the mind of the French sociologist Émile Durkheim and his absolute heavyweight of a doctoral dissertation, The Division of Labor in Society. This isn't just some dusty old book. It's basically the blueprint of our modern existence.
It really is. This is one of those foundational texts that, in a way, invented sociology as a science. And I'm glad we're tackling it because usually when people hear division of labor, their eyes just glaze over. They think of economics. They think of Adam Smith and his pin factory.
Right, the classic efficiency argument. One guy cuts the wire, one guy straightens it, another sharpens the point. So suddenly you're making 4,000 pins an hour instead of 10. We specialize because it makes us richer and faster. That's the standard narrative we're all taught.
Precisely. That was the prevailing wisdom of the 19th century. But Durkheim, he looked at that and said, you are missing the entire point. He wasn't really interested in efficiency. He was interested in morality. He was looking at this huge transition from what he called primitive societies to modern industrial capitalist societies. And he wasn't asking, how did we get rich? He was asking, what is the glue?
The glue.
The social glue. The thing that keeps us from killing each other. How does a society maintain order when everyone is doing something different, believing something different, living completely different lives? That is the fundamental sociological question.
And you have to place this in context. 1893. The Industrial Revolution isn't just a history lesson for Durkheim. It's happening right outside his window. Cities are exploding in size. Traditional communities are just evaporating.
Right.
The church is losing its grip on daily life. It must have felt like the world was spinning off its axis.
It was a time of immense anxiety. And to really get Durkheim and where he sits in the history of ideas, you absolutely have to contrast him with his contemporary Karl Marx. They are looking at the exact same world, the factories, the smoke, the massive inequality, the upheaval. And Marx looks at it and says, the system is broken. It is defined by class conflict. The only solution is revolution. Burn it down.
But Durkheim looks at the same chaos and sees something different.
He does. He says, no, the system isn't inherently evil. It's just sick, chaos. He viewed conflict and chaos not as the engine of history, which Marx did, but as pathological. He believed that a healthy division of labor is actually the supreme moral force of modern civilization. He thought it was the only thing that could save us.
So Marx is the revolutionary who wants to amputate the limb because it's gangrenous, and Durkheim is the doctor trying to find the right medicine to heal the infection and save the patient.
That is a perfect way to frame it. But to find that medicine, Durkheim first had to understand the anatomy of the patient. He had to figure out what social solidarity actually is. What makes a group of people a society and not just a random pile of humans.
Which leads us to the core framework of the book. Durkheim proposes that there are two distinct types of solidarity.
Hmm.
Two different operating systems for humanity, in a way. The first one he calls mechanical solidarity.
Hmm.
And I know listeners might hear mechanical and think of robots or something, but that's not it.
Right, we should be careful with that word. He doesn't mean machine-like in the sense of a factory. He means mechanical in like a physics sense, like the molecules in an inorganic object, a rock or something.
Hmm.
They move together because they are linked directly without any complex internal structure. In a society with mechanical solidarity, the bond is based on likeness.
Likeness. So we stay together because we are all the same.
Exactly. Think of a clan, or a small agrarian tribe, or even a very strict religious sect today. Social cohesion exists because everyone resembles everyone else. You do the same work hunting, gathering, farming. You worship the same gods, you follow the same rituals. The daily rhythm of your life is identical to your neighbors.
So there's very little room for me in this setup.
Almost none. In this state, the individual personality is just absorbed into the collective personality. And this brings us to one of Durkheim's most famous and, frankly, most difficult concepts to grasp, the collective conscience.
I always struggle with this one. It sounds like a sci-fi hive mind, like we're the Borg or something.
It's not that far off. Durkheim defines the collective conscience as the totality of beliefs and sentiments common to average citizens of the same society. But here's the kicker. He says it forms a determinate system which has its own life.
Its own life. That's the part that trips people up.
Yeah.
He's treating society as a distinct entity, separate from the individuals in it.
Yes. It's the idea that the group mind is distinct from and more powerful than any individual mind. In a state of mechanical solidarity, this collective conscience is thick, it's heavy. It covers almost every aspect of your existence. It dictates how you cut your hair, who you marry, what you eat, how you pray. The we is infinitely stronger than the I.
So if I'm a member of a mechanical society, I don't really have private thoughts. Or if you do, they don't really matter.
You are essentially a mirror reflecting the group. And because everyone is a mirror reflecting everyone else, the bond is incredibly strong. You feel a deep, warm sense of belonging. But it's brittle. It relies entirely on everyone staying the same. If someone starts to differ, if someone says, actually, I don't want to worship that totem, or I want to farm differently, it's a major crisis.
Because difference is a threat. If the glue is sameness, then difference is a solvent. It just dissolves the bond.
Exactly, which is why these kinds of societies punish difference so severely. But we'll get to punishment in a minute. First, we have to look at the shift. History moves forward, populations grow, and we transition to the second type. Organic solidarity.
And this is the paradox we started with. Organic solidarity is based not on sameness, but on difference.
Yes. He switches the metaphor from physics, which was mechanical, to biology, which is organic. Think about your own body. It's an organism. You have a heart, a liver, lungs, a brain. These organs are not alike. The cells of your liver look nothing like the neurons in your brain. They have completely different structures and functions. They're specialized.
But the liver can't just walk away and start its own liver club.
Right, because they are so specialized, they're critically dependent on one another. The heart can't survive without the oxygen from the lungs. The brain dies without the glucose from the liver. This is the new model for society.
So in a modern society, Durkheim's society and ours, I the heart, you're the liver, the person driving the bus is the nervous system. We're all doing different things, which makes us individuals, but that very difference creates a bond of necessity.
That is the profound shift. Durkheim says that as society grows, the sphere of action peculiar to each person grows. Individuality explodes. The collective conscience shrinks. It covers less of our lives. We don't all have to agree on religion or music or fashion anymore. We can have different beliefs, but the functional interdependence becomes incredibly tight.
It's a stronger bond, isn't it? Or at least more resilient. In the mechanical version, if you remove one person from the tribe is mostly fine. They're all the same. It's like taking a bucket of water out of a lake. The lake is still water.
But in the organic version, if you remove a vital organ, the whole thing dies. If the garbage collectors stop working for 3 weeks, the city collapses into disease. If the truck drivers stop driving, we starve in days.
This really reframes the whole idea of individualism. We tend to think of individualism as freedom from others. Durkheim seems to be saying, no, your individualism is purchased by your dependence on others. You can only be a software engineer because someone else is growing your food and someone else is treating your water.
Precisely. Society becomes more capable of collective movement exactly because each element has more freedom of movement. It sounds contradictory, but think of a complex machine versus a simple block of stone. The machine has all these moving parts, yet it acts as a whole unit more effectively than the stone. The specialized parts make the whole stronger.
Okay, so conceptually this makes sense. We have the tribe, which is mechanical and samey, and we have the city, which is organic and different. But Durkheim is a scientist. He can't just say, I feel like the vibes have changed. He needs proof. He needs data. How do you measure something as abstract as social solidarity? You can't put connection on a scale.
This is the methodological brilliance of the book. Durkheim says solidarity is a moral fact. It's internal. It lives in our heads. You can't measure it directly. So he needs a visible thermometer, an external index. And for Durkheim, that thermometer is law.
The legal code.
He says that law is the most visible symbol of social solidarity. It is the organization of social life in its most precise and stable form. If you want to know how a society is held together, don't listen to what they say. Don't look at their art. Look at how they punish people who break the rules.
So he categorizes law into two buckets that match his two types of solidarity. Let's look at the first one, repressive law or penal law. This corresponds to that mechanical tribal stage.
Repressive law is exactly what it sounds like. It's about suffering. Think about ancient codes, Leviticus, or even strict religious laws today. If you break a taboo, say you eat the wrong food, or you speak the name of the god in vain, or you touch the sacred object, what happens?
You get punished. And usually it's not a fine, it's physical, it's public. We're talking execution, exile, dismemberment.
But ask yourself, why? Why is the punishment so severe? Durkheim asks this. If I eat a ham sandwich on the wrong day, I haven't physically hurt my neighbor. I haven't stolen his money. I haven't broken his leg. Why does the group react with such violence?
It goes back to the collective conscience, right?
Exactly. Durkheim argues that a crime in a mechanical society is not an attack on a person. It is an attack on the collective conscience. It is an attack on the very thing that makes the society exist. When everyone shares the exact same strong beliefs, a deviation feels like a personal attack on everyone.
There was a quote in the source material that I just loved, and I think it summarizes this perfectly. He says, "We do not reprove it because it's a crime, but it is a crime because we reprove it."
That is the definitive statement. Crime is emotional. It defines the boundaries of the group. Punishment in this system is about vengeance. It is a passionate reaction. The society is furious that its sacred values have been touched, and it lashes out to heal the wound. The punishment has to be severe to counterbalance the offense to the collective soul.
That explains why the punishment is so often public and theatrical. It's not really about the criminal, is it? It's more of a ritual for the law-abiding people.
Yes, it reinforces the bond. We all gather in the town square to stone the sinner, and in doing so, we reaffirm that we are the righteous ones. We are the group. That is why repressive law dominates these earlier societies. The collective conscience is everything, so defending it is the only priority.
But then as we move toward organic solidarity, the legal code changes. We see the rise of what he calls restitutive law.
Right. Restitutive law is civil law, commercial law, administrative law, constitutional law. Think about a breach of contract today. If you hire a contractor to fix your roof and they do a bad job, or they just walk off the site, what happens?
I sue them. I get my money back. Or the court orders them to finish the roof.
Do we drag them into the public square and flog them?
No, that would be completely insane.
Do we feel a sense of intense, passionate rage? I mean, maybe you do personally, but does the community gather and scream for their blood?
No, it's a transaction. It's cold.
That is the difference. The goal of restitutive law is not vengeance. It is the restoration of the original situation. We just want to make things whole again. Durkheim points out that in this system, the judge doesn't speak of punishment or suffering. He speaks of obligations, rights, damages, interests.
And this reflects organic solidarity because it's regulating the relationships between all the specialized parts.
Correct. It acknowledges that we are different. You are a contractor. I am a homeowner. We have different roles. The law isn't defending some sacred, unified belief system. It's just oiling the gears of the machine to keep the parts working together. It's basically traffic rules. You don't hate the person who violated the traffic rule with a religious fury. You just want the traffic to start flowing again.
So the historical trend, the data that Durkheim was looking for, is this massive shift in the ratio. You see progressive decline in repressive law, fewer public executions, fewer religious crimes, and a huge explosion of restitutive law. Things like contracts, property rights, corporate law.
And that shift in the legal code is the hard evidence. It shows that our moral glue has changed from likeness to interdependence. We don't hang people for blasphemy anymore because the collective conscience around religion has become weak and vague. But we have a million laws about zoning and intellectual property because our interdependence has become absolutely massive.
Okay, so we've established the shift from mechanical to organic. And we have the shift from penal to civil law.
Yeah.
But we haven't really talked about the why. What drove this change? Why didn't we just stay in our tribes being carbon copies of each other? It seemed to work for thousands of years.
This is where Durkheim really picks a fight with the economists of his day. You know, the Adam Smith types, the utilitarians.
The rational actor theory.
Right. The standard explanation was that people just realized, hey, if I focus on making shoes and you focus on growing wheat, we'll both have more shoes and more wheat. It's efficient. It makes us happy. It increases our wealth.
Which makes a lot of sense on the surface. We trade because we want to.
Yeah.
It's logical.
Durkheim rejects that completely. He says the division of labor is not natural. It's a developed condition. He argues that early humans didn't want to specialize. In fact, doing the same thing as your ancestors was a moral imperative. Change was scary. And furthermore, he argues that specialization creates boredom, monotony, routine. He didn't believe it necessarily increased happiness at all. He thought the early tribesman was probably just as happy, if not happier, than the factory worker.
So if we didn't choose it for happiness or wealth, why on earth did we do it?
Because we had no choice. It was a survival mechanism. He traces it all back to density.
Material and moral density. Okay, let's break that down.
It starts with material density, pure population growth. We learned agriculture, we settled down, populations grew. Then urbanization happened. Cities formed. Durkheim calls cities points where the social mass contracts strongly. We are physically jammed together.
But just being jammed together doesn't automatically make us specialize. We could just be a big jammed crowd of identical farmers.
No, that's just the pressure cooker. The heat comes from what he calls moral density, which is the intensity of communication and interaction. Transportation improves, communication improves, the gaps between people shrink. And this creates a crisis. Durkheim calls it the struggle for existence.
This sounds very, very Darwinian.
It is deeply Darwinian. Durkheim applies Darwin's logic to society. Imagine a small town where everyone is a baker. If the population doubles and everyone tries to stay a baker, what happens?
We fight to the death for the flour and the customers. It becomes a zero-sum game.
Exactly. If we are all the same, as in a mechanical society, we are in direct competition for the exact same resources. The more alike we are, the more we are rivals. As density increases, that competition becomes acute. We would destroy each other.
So we have two choices. Kill the competition to reduce the population, or
Yeah.
change.
Change. Specialization is the peace treaty. It is what Durkheim calls the mellow denouement of the struggle. If I stay a baker, but you become a brewer, and someone else becomes a tailor, we step out of each other's way. We are no longer rivals. We are partners. We are pursuing different objects.
I love that phrase, mellow denouement. It makes the division of labor sound so poetic. It's not an economic strategy. It's a way to avoid a massacre.
Precisely. The division of labor allows a greater number of individuals to survive in the same space. It allows the social volume to grow without violence. So civilization isn't a choice we made to get rich. It's a necessity imposed on us by our own population growth. We specialize so we wouldn't have to kill each other.
That is a profound shift in perspective. And here is where we have to look at the world around us, and I think where the listeners might be getting skeptical.
Yeah.
If this system is so organic, so evolved, if it's this beautiful peace treaty that binds us together, why does modern life so often feel so terrible?
Yes. The reality check.
Exactly. Why do we have massive inequality? Why do we have economic crises where people lose everything? Why do we have the loneliness epidemic? If we are so interdependent, why do we feel so alone?
This is the most critical part of the book, and perhaps the most important for us today. Durkheim isn't a blind optimist. He sees the suffering. But unlike Marx, who says the suffering proves the system is evil and must be destroyed, Durkheim says the suffering proves the system is sick. He treats these problems as abnormal forms, pathologies.
So the body is fighting an infection. What are the diseases?
The first pathology is the most famous one, the anomic division of labor. You've probably heard the word anomy.
Yeah, it gets thrown around in sociology classes a lot. It usually gets translated as normlessness.
That's the literal translation. But in the context of the division of labor, it's a bit more specific. Enemy happens when the organs of society are not in sufficient contact. The economy grows too fast for the moral rules to keep up.
Can you give me a concrete example of this speed problem?
Think about the tech industry right now, or the gig economy. Technology disrupted the way we work, seemingly overnight. Suddenly you have millions of people working as independent contractors for an algorithm. There are no clear rules about loyalty, about benefits, about the relationship between the worker and the company. The law hasn't caught up. The morality hasn't caught up.
So the heart is pumping, but it's not getting the right signal from the brain. The parts are moving, but there's no real regulation.
Exactly. Durkheim talks about the opaque environment between the boss and the worker. In a small shop, the master and the apprentice worked side by side. They shared a life. In a massive factory or a massive digital platform, there's no contact. The worker becomes just a cog. They repeat the same motion without understanding how it fits into the whole.
That sounds exactly like Marx's alienation.
It describes the same phenomenon, but the diagnosis is the complete opposite. Marx says that machine-like state is the goal of capitalism. It's a feature, not a bug. Durkheim says it is an error, a pathology. In a healthy organic solidarity, the worker, even if specialized, should understand their role. They should feel connected to the whole. When they don't, it's because the system has moved too fast. The solidary parts are disconnected.
So enemy is a lack of connection and regulation. It's when the changes in the economy outpace the changes in our morality. What's the second disease?
The second pathology is the forced division of labor. This is essentially a lack of fairness.
This is where Durkheim tackles inequality.
Yes, and this is crucial for you to understand. Durkheim is a meritocrat. He believes that for organic solidarity to actually work, for me to accept my role as the liver and you as the heart, I have to believe that I'm in this role because it fits my abilities. He calls these natural inequalities. Some people are smarter or stronger or more talented than others.
So if you're a genius, you should be a scientist. If I'm strong, I should be a builder. And if that happens, we are both happy because we are fulfilling our nature.
Right. But if there are external forces like inherited wealth, the caste system or class privilege that prevent people from taking the roles that fit their abilities, then the system is forced. It is not spontaneous.
So if I'm a genius born into poverty and I'm stuck sweeping floors because I couldn't afford college, while a mediocre person born rich becomes the CEO just because of who their dad was,
then the division of labor is forced. And here is the danger. If it's forced, it produces no solidarity. It produces resentment. It produces class war. Durkheim is very clear here. Inherited wealth and class privilege are obstacles to a healthy society.
that is a surprisingly radical stance for a guy who's usually seen as a conservative order guy.
It is. He says society is forced to reduce these disparities to maintain order. If the game is rigged, the players won't respect the rules. He's essentially arguing for social justice, but from a functionalist perspective. He doesn't want equality for equality's sake. He wants it because otherwise the organism gets sick and dies.
If the liver hates the heart because the heart has an unfair advantage, the body starts to attack itself.
Exactly. It becomes an autoimmune disease.
So we have the diagnosis, we have anomie, which is disconnection due to rapid change, and forced labor, which is resentment due to unfairness. These are the reasons modern life feels broken. The obvious next question is, what is the cure? How do we fix a sick society?
Well, Durkheim looks around. He's skeptical that the free market can fix itself. That's what caused the enemy in the first place. But he also thinks the state, the big central government, is too remote.
The government can pass laws, but it can't make me feel emotionally connected to you. It's too big, too clumsy.
Right. The state provides the general framework, justice, education, but it can't provide that daily moral glue. It can't replace the warmth of the tribe. So Durkheim's specific hope for the future lies in occupational groups.
Occupational groups.
Think of them as professional associations, or maybe guilds 2.0. He envisioned these groups standing between the individual and the state. Imagine a corporation, not as a business owned by shareholders, but as a community of everyone in a specific industry, workers, managers, and owners together.
This sounds a little bit like a union, but also a little bit like a medieval guild.
It's a mix. He wanted to recreate the collective conscience, but on a smaller, more manageable scale. If you're a doctor, you're part of the medical association, you have a code of ethics, you have a shared identity with other doctors, you regulate yourselves, you look out for each other.
We see that in medicine and law. But he wanted this for everyone. The Guild of Software Engineers. The Association of Baristas.
Yes. He believed these groups would foster a general interest. They would curb individual egos. They would create a moral power that prevents the law of the strongest in the economy. If you're part of a professional community, you feel a solidarity with your peers that goes beyond just your paycheck.
So he wants to inject a little bit of that old mechanical solidarity, that warmth, that shared identity back into our cold, specialized world.
Exactly. He sees it as the only way to reintroduce morality into the machinery of the economy. We need to belong to something smaller than the state, but bigger than ourselves.
This feels like a good moment to zoom out and just synthesize the journey we've been on,
Mm,
because we've covered a lot of ground.
we certainly have.
We started with the primitive tribe mechanical solidarity. Everyone is the same. The collective conscience is king.
Yep.
If you step out of line, the repressive law crushes you to save the group's feelings.
Then, population density forces us into the struggle for existence. To survive, we specialize. We evolve into organic solidarity. We become different, specialized, and legally bound by restitutive law contracts and rights. We are freer, but we're much more dependent.
But the transition is messy. We get pathologies. We get anomie, where the rules haven't caught up to the speed of the economy. And we get the forced division of labor, where old inequalities rig the game and create resentment.
And the proposed cure is to build these intermediate groups, occupational communities, that make us feel like we belong to something real again.
So here's the so what for you listening today. We're living in 2026. We are drowning in new technology. We have AI agents doing our work. We have remote teams scattered across time zones. Is Durkheim's diagnosis still relevant?
I would argue it's the most relevant framework we have. Look at the loneliness epidemic. Durkheim warned us about this. He said that material density, just being crowded together or connected by fiber optic cables, isn't enough. You need moral density.
Just because I'm in a Zoom call with you doesn't mean we have a shared moral life.
Exactly. If we have the internet, which is connection, without shared understanding, which is values, we are just crowded and lonely. That is anomie. The rules of how to treat each other online, how to work with AI, how to balance life and tackling, those rules haven't been written yet. We are living in the gap.
And then there's the forced division of labor. We are seeing massive cultural battles right now about things like Nepo babies, about the wealth gap, about the fact that hard work doesn't seem to pay off the way it used to.
And Durkheim would say, pay attention to that anger. It's not just noise. It is a symptom that the organism is rejecting its own organs. If people feel the game is rigged, the interdependence becomes a chain, not a bond. They will try to break the chain.
Which brings us to a provocative final thought. Durkheim was, deep down, an optimist. He believed that civilization brings us closer through need. He believed that melodénouement was inevitable, that we would eventually learn to cooperate because we have to.
He did. He believed rationality and need would ultimately win out.
But look at his warning about the forced division of labor. If our current economy is increasingly based on inherited advantage or algorithmic dominance, rather than true human merit, are we actually risking the life of the organism?
That is the big question.
If the liver decides it hates the heart because the heart is hoarding all the blood, how long can the body survive? Are we heading toward a breakdown, not because of chaos, but because we refuse to make the division of labor truly fair?
The health of the whole depends on the justice of the parts. If we ignore the justice, we lose the whole.
Something to think about the next time you depend on a stranger to make your coffee, or deliver your package, or route your data. We are all in this tangled web together. The question is it a web of support or a web of entrapment?
Let's hope for support.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive into Durkheim. We'll see you next time.